मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है आज श्री जवाहर सरकार को वेलकम करते हुए हमारे पॉडकास्ट नो हाफ ट्रूथ्स पूरा सच इनसाइड आउट पर। व्यूअर्स को मैं ये बता दूं कि मैं और जवाहर सरकार एक ही पद पे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया में काफी दिनों तक काम कर चुके हैं और वो पोजीशन थी सेक्रेटरी कल्चर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया। तो आज का जो हमारा ये पॉडकास्ट है, जो हमारी ये कॉन्वर्सेशन है, वो इंडिया कल्चरल लैंडस्केप पे होगी। जवाहर सरकार जी सेक्रेटरी कल्चर रहे, उसके बाद प्रसार भारती के चीफ रहे और तत्पश्चात उन्होंने ये डिसाइड किया कि वो अब पॉलिटिकल अरीना में भी कूदेंगे, अनलाइक मोस्ट ऑफ द सिविल सर्वेंट्स। और उन्होंने तृणमूल को ज्वाइन किया और इसके बाद वो मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट भी रहे। ये एक अलग बात है कि कुछ ही दिनों पहले, कुछ महीनों पहले उन्होंने उस मेंबरशिप से रिजाइन कर दिया है, बट हम पॉलिटिक्स में नहीं जाएंगे। तो मेरा सर पहला सवाल आपसे ये है कि हम ये बताते नहीं थकते कि हमारी जो कल्चर है दैट इज as old as 5,000 years. Now, of course, there is a new narrative and that says that it is much more older. Lekin, despite all this, where is our cultural economy?
You see, establishing a culture and its antiquity is one thing. You can find antiquities in every archaeological finds in every part of the globe. To establish the link between the past and the present is what matters most. India is one of those lucky countries where we have a reasonable amount, मैं ऐसा नहीं कहूंगा कि सारे के सारे है, reasonable amount of continuum that many countries don't have. They have had different incursions, different episodes, different phases, and they are not connected to each other. They accept this collage as history. Hindustan may, for some other reason, for some historical reason, and when I say Hindustan, I include the whole of the subcontinent, we are lucky that we have been able to establish links from Mehergarh, that's about 7,000 years ago, 7,000, till today. We've been able to establish it more or less. It's not fully carved. और ऐसा है कि इवन मेहरगढ़ या हड़प्पन सिविलाइजेशन के जितने सारे हम चीज देखते, जो सामान मिलते, जो आर्कियोलॉजिकल फाइंड्स एंड कल्चरल ट्रेट्स दैट कम आउट आर देयर एज अ लिविंग ट्रेडिशन इन इंडिया नाउ फॉर एटलीस्ट 7,000 to 8,000 years. That is the beauty of it all. That is the beauty of it all. That the people did not disperse in a different country. The second fascinating thing about India is that we have hardly had migrations abroad. People who came here, there are lots of people who came here and got intermingled with Indian culture.
Sir, एक मिनट, can I interject? सर, मेरा आपसे ये प्रश्न था कि इंडिया की जो कल्चर इकोनॉमी है, so when I talk of culture economy, I mean mainstreaming of capital investment in cultural sector. हमारे यहाँ अभी भी स्टेट का एक पेट्रनेज है, जैसे अदर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में हिसाब किताब रहता है, वैसा हमारे यहाँ नहीं है। मेरा प्रश्न इस पे था सर।
नहीं, ठीक है, उसी का जवाब मैं दूंगा। आप शोकेसिंग की बात कर रहे हैं, आप आइदर शोकेसिंग और व्हाट बेनिफिट्स वी कैन ड्रॉ आउट ऑफ टूरिस्ट इंडस्ट्री एंड ऑल दैट, वो भी सही है, टू द एक्सटेंट दैट वी हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू कैपिटलाइज ऑन इट टू द एक्सटेंट पॉसिबल. लेट मी गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. 4 river valley civilizations were there more or less at the same time. You know, the Nile, Mesopotamian, the Indus Valley, and a little later the Chinese River Valley Civilization. The amount of Western interest in Mesopotamia or Sumer and in Egypt, not 1% of it has been displayed where Indus Valley is concerned. So there is no Indus Valley or Harappologists as we have Egyptologists. So that you can start from that point, that even though most of the sites are today in Pakistan, that doesn't matter. We have enough sites on this side as well. We have not been able to capitalize on it. Egypt uses those archaeological finds at its most strongest tourist point. So does Iraq, so do parts of Iran. We have not been able to do it. There are various reasons for it. It's not that. One of the reasons, and I'd be very blunt where this is concerned, is that there was not gold enough. You see, there was not gold enough to attract tomb robbers. And tomb robbers are the first precursors of cultural analysts. There was not gold enough. The Indus Valley Civilization appears to have been more or less a trading civilization, nevertheless. It had its own internal prosperity and some amount of, as I have explained it elsewhere, a bit of a dull Soviet parity about everything. Everything looked the same, everybody was the same, classes, hierarchies didn't come, and therefore accrued surpluses that make a civilization shine. Magnificent buildings, number one, hordes of gold, number two, deification of rulers, number three, as all happened in Egypt, didn't happen in Indus Valley. So we don't have Harappologists as a class anywhere. That's to start with. The Indus Valley Civilization के बाद जो हमारे जिसको हम आर्य वैदिक कहते हैं, उसमें material find तो है ही नहीं. It's strange. That entire period does not produce any material finds excepting shards and pottery. We don't get a spoon.
In the United States of America, where there are hardly any, I mean, as a country, they are very fresh, but yet you see their cultural economy. It's booming. I mean, there is just so much of money is coming in that particular sector. Why has that not come in our case, where there is anything and everything which we require for our culture economy to prosper and boom? Have you and I been at fault in this? Is what I'm saying.
No, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. The Americans had the freedom of what you call carte blanche to start with, because with no archaeology pulling them back.
No, it could be Britain, it could be Germany, it could be any of Japan.
They have been able to monetize their historical and cultural finds. The monetization. Now, monetization is not the primary objective of culture. Monetization of culture may be the primary objective of tourism. Let's get it clear. It might be a primary objective of tourism. Culture is A, to find more, B, to preserve it, C, to record it, and D, to mainstream it within our history.
But sir, they are not mutually exclusive. They are not mutually exclusive. You can preserve it, and yet you can create an economy around it. Culture in isolation is what? No one will be able to experience it.
I think I'll give you an example.
But I'm just pushing you a little.
No, it's perfectly all right. It's perfectly all right. It's perfectly a very valid question. I would put it as the part of it goes back to the imperial policy, the Archaeological Survey and its policies and all that. And that did splendors, that did wonders for India by discovering this. Spade of the archaeologists discovered what the mind of the Hindu had forgotten. Okay. Having said, or the Buddhist had forgotten. Having said that, it also put in certain restrictions. So within British India, there were tremendous restrictions on the use of cultural property, if you remember. Now, just look back at the princely states of Rajasthan, where the Archaeological Survey Amasra Act did not apply. In other words, they could reutilize their citadels, their forts, and their cultural areas. That happened in Madhya Pradesh. The princely states of Madhya Pradesh and Rajputana are the best examples, where the ASI's restrictions did not apply. So while practically none of ASI's precincts are marketed, excepting the Red Fort and the usual ones, the Red Fort and Taj Mahal and all that, that would attract visitors anyway, whether there was ASI or no ASI. Other than that, we have not been able to make imaginative use of cultural spaces for tourism. For tourism. For instance, the lights that are put up on Humayun's tomb, they bring about a ethereal, what shall I say, wonder to the tomb itself. How many night visits are there? None. I mean, we spent magnificent amount to light up those monuments of Delhi, but there is no night tourism. There is no night tourism. I tried. The police commissioner said it is dangerous going past Humayun. So I think it's a very silly one. We went up to the Home Ministry and said this is not an acceptable reply. So Humayun's tomb, or with the lights on, appear as if in moonlight on every night. No one goes there. Safdarjung's tomb also has similar advantages. We don't have tourism there. I mean, to give you examples of how we get constricted where these things, Sarkari things are concerned. But look at each palace and fort along Rajputana or Madhya Pradesh. Now you'll get the difference between the Sarkari approach and the open, free approach.
I think, sir, we are actually reinforcing the stereotype by the usage of the term Sarkari. A leading question to what you just said is that ASI sits on a vast treasure trove of India's culture, whether it is in terms of tangibles like the buildings or something like the sculptures, like the glass slides. There are 20 of them lying in the Red Fort. And of course, the old photographs, the old research work. In your opinion, sir, has the ASI really vindicated itself with the changing of times and the changing of views in our country from the imperial days to the age of democracy?
Not a very exciting change. Various attempts have been brought to.
Why have we not been able to succeed? Is my question.
One of it is the constriction of rules. The constriction of rules of use and the usual jealousies that work within an organization. I have dealt with innumerable cases of bright officers trying to do something within their precincts or within the archaeological monuments, and coming across the wall of jealousy and complaint against them. So, in a typical governmental atmosphere, they said, let sleeping dogs lie. That approach has to go. We have had a long time where the top could just intervene and tell them, okay, this is not what we expect. You have retrieved, you have preserved, अब बस वही करो. बाकी और किसी को संभाल दे दो.
I'm reminded of, and you would also, of various standing committee meetings, parliamentary consultative committee meetings, in which the acts and the rules governing the ASI monuments have been discussed, and at various times amendments to that act have been suggested. My own feeling is that whichever government may be there, as long as it is there in opposition, it starts opposing the amendments. And when the same government finds itself back in the ruling benches, then it tries to support it. Now, this kind of a paradoxical situation.
Whoa, that politics is there. I have been on it.
Yeah.
That politics is there. Politics of it. Ki aap hamare virasat bhrasht kare and all that sort of. You are destroying it. That's there. That's there.
Do you think, sir, that after the days of the British, when they brought out various narratives to do with ancient India, also to do with medieval India, has that kind of important find? Of course, there are finds in Sanoli, there are finds in other areas which throws fresh light. But this kind of a radical find which changes the narrative of our ancient Indian history post-independence, do you think there has been any find like that which has had that kind of impact?
There have been major finds. One of them is the Kiladi. The Kiladi one that we are facing now, that we are talking about in Tamil
But
Nadu, is one of them.
there is a problem in the narrative.
Mhm.
The state
Mhm.
thinks it's going in for a particular narrative. The center thinks it's going in. So there is a controversy.
Ah,
Would you
no, no,
throw
there's
some
a
light?
controversy. There's a controversy, I admit, but the point is that Kiladi is one. Okay, we'll have to work it out. We'll have to work. Right now, passions are running high. We'll have to work it out. And if Kiladi really works out to be true, then the entire gamut is changed, because then we have the Iron Age established in South India, in the Deccan, at the same time as the North, and that sort of takes the whole thing. It's an academic question, but matters a lot, because the Iron Age gives you surpluses. Remember, it gives you surpluses. Surplus is good enough to display. So we have
But that's a
Kiladi, we
very
have certain.
deductive kind of, that is a very deductive kind of logic, which say people like D.D. Koshambi or R.S. Sharma applied. So, you start completely deducing and then reach a conclusion, which is, to my mind, a narrative which they sort of fostered and nourished, which then came to be known as the Marxist approach to ancient Indian history.
The Marxist approach didn't harm Indian history. You must remember, it may have been a little more adventurous. It didn't harm, because no one could contradict the facts. No one. D.N. Jha may have gone berserk on how many cows were eaten by how many Brahmins. He may have gone berserk on that. But no one could come and say that the Brahmins did not eat, or the Indians didn't eat cows at that point of
So
time.
this is
So
this
we
is in my
have
mind again a
data.
stereotype,
Mm,
because you see, in trying
mm,
to focus too much on beef eating and certain other fault lines which have traditionally been brought out by this set of historians particularly. But in trying to
mm,
do that, what has happened is that you have missed out on so much which is very positive. You completely missed out on the Sanskritic sun, which actually shown over a huge swathe of territory, which from Java to, say, Afghanistan. William Dalrymple recently in his book has brought it out. But again, what he has done is that he's also started focusing more on the fault lines of our setup, of our social setup. And he equates Sanatan Dharma to first ism, which is Hinduism, and then he relates it to Brahmanism. And then in Brahmanism, he gets the fault lines. So I really get a
No,
feeling when I
if
read
you
these people
so
to what they're trying to drive at.
no, but we can't imagine. You can't imagine a history that did not exist. We wish it existed, but we can't force down and imagine glory. That's it. That's the first
No,
point.
sir, the glory of
History.
Sanskrit is recognized by people like William Jones, and we
No,
ourselves
no.
don't seem to recognize it.
We have gone through the Sanskrit thing for about 200 years. Number one. Number two, even William Jones and everyone else from Max Muller have realized that not even 5 to 10% spoke it. 5 to 10% of
No,
India
even
spoke
if
it. It was
Prakrit was being spoken, the fact of, yeah.
Prakrit. No, no. Whether Prakrit is a derivative of Sanskrit is still not established. Whether Prakrit is a derivative of Sanskrit, it is profoundly influenced by Sanskrit. Its
But you still can't
pronunciation.
take away from the fact that whether it was medicine, whether it was metallurgy, whether it was astronomy, whether it was mathematics or pure literature, poetry.
I'm
See,
saying,
anything and
and
everything
I've
was in
asked
poetry
this.
form. Now, there is just so much
No, no,
which we as Indians don't
I
even know what comes out of the.
no, no.
Instead, we focus on astrology.
Raghvendra, I'll explain. This has been, I have had the good fortune of debating this with some of the best scholars
I'm
that the
just pushing
BJP
you a
has.
little because it
No,
has
no,
to
no,
be a
no. You
little
please
interesting
go ahead. Please
for
go ahead.
our audiences.
No, because I have had the good fortune of discussing this with Professor Rakesh Sharma and some of the best minds that exist in the BJP. My submissions are this, and I leave it to the audience to discuss today. Number one, we have peaks of glory. We can name 20 of them. Okay. Now we have had peaks of their excellence coming out through theory, through propositions, through sciences, through everything. A, how much of it percolated to the masses? How much of it is percolated to the masses? Without theorizing, the wood steel of the Kannada area reached magnificent proportions and were used as swords. You understand? So there was no theorization of the steel of the Kannada Valley, Kannada area, woods as we call it, and it reached Damascus. The people in Damascus or the Middle East used Indian steel and the Indians didn't. So that we must get our points clear. The astronomers may have revealed, they may have understood the universe, but did it impact what we call universal knowledge? So this A, the knowledge seems to have kept itself within certain limitations. B, the peaks of excellence for which I am proud as an Indian and as a Hindu, I have no qualms about it, have also been restricted to a minuscule class. You and I would not be allowed to join those classes. You must remember these. Instead of taking vicarious pride in it, that you and I would not be allowed to join those classes. They
No
were
one seems to
very.
take this line of no one seems to take this
Mm,
line of argument while
mm.
discussing the achievements of Greek and Latin literature or the
No,
culture
because it
which
was
spawned.
open. It was open. It was open. Remember the structure,
You
the
are
social
saying that
structure.
those cultures were
Mm.
far more open than ours.
Far
Is
more,
that
but
what your?
it's been established. They're far more
Well, I
open,
tend to
far more.
differ.
No. I'll explain how the far more open. A discovery made by any scholar or any group of scholars on a particular point of time would permeate into the technology of the times, and that's happened everywhere. They borrowed, they borrowed algebra from the Arabs and made it a science. From speculation, algebra became a
So
science.
that is what I'm saying,
They,
sir. We
uh,
forget
so,
our
so
geometry
where
and
did we?
algebra, which came
Uh,
up through our means, which was very indigenous to us. Anyway, sir, what I'm
but
thinking of
mm,
doing right now is to veering
mm,
off from this conversation. Otherwise, it will not be on the
no,
cultural landscape.
let me say just a couple of points on it. Number one, the knowledge was esoteric, the wisdom was insular. That's the first point. That's the first point, and there is no doubt about it. I've written it
To
again
my
and
mind,
again
they were
because.
not because they were
Mm,
not esoteric at all. It was
mm.
evolved in a particular way, and
Okay,
it was actually
I'll give
well
an example.
established.
I'll
So
give an
let's
example.
not
I'll
get
give
into
an
this debate, sir, right now. That's my humble
example.
submission to you, if you allow me,
Okay.
as a junior colleague.
I'm saying how many Sushroots came up after Sushrut? Sushrut. Okay. How
Well,
many
see, this is
Sushroots
what
did
I'm
you
saying.
have?
There are so
The
many, and
body
we
was
don't know.
untouchable.
And it's our
You must realize.
ignorance.
No, you must
Because I
realize
can
that
list
one.
out the number of
Hmm.
astronomers, the number of mathematicians, the number
But
of
how does it
metallurgists,
affect?
the number of doctors. But anyway,
Excellent. But where did it help us stop any invasion? We lost to every
you
force
see,
that came. Every force. Every force of every religion or
sir, would you allow
non-religious
me
belief.
to change tack
Mm,
now,
mm,
sir?
mm,
You see,
mm,
let me provoke you a little. I have been actually quite interested in listening to what you all say, what you particularly say at various media platforms. And I have found you quite critical of most of the things in terms of how they exist. Uh, uh, I would want you to say what is the positive that you particularly did as a culture secretary when you were secretary culture. I mean, what do you think was something which you introduced or which you thought had blossomed or which you catalyzed during your longish tenure? I think you had a longish tenure as secretary culture.
Well, the 14 point of museum reforms, they have taken my signature off. Uh, they have taken it's accepted as the government policy on museum reform. You Google it, you open it. They call it the 14-point agenda for museum reforms. I wrote it on my dinner table at night. After going through several discussions, meetings, conclaves, and all that, I had worked it out. The 14 points remain the guiding light of it. I don't want credit for it because I didn't invent it. I collated it. That's all. So the 14 points of museum reforms and the issues thereof were one of the things that one could have the good fortune of contributing. On the library front, we could take it to, at that point of time, I retired in 2012, so that's about 13 years ago. On the library front and the reforms and the money spent, the most interesting thing and controversial thing was the performing arts. The performing arts reached budgets and groups that had never been touched before. Culture is a realm of vested interests. I'm repeating it. Culture is the realm of vested interests, and most of the vested interests are centered and settled all around Shastri Bhavan, within the reach of Shastri Bhavan. In other words, somebody who is a South Indian dancer would also plant his flag within 2 kilometers of Shastri Bhavan and would be available to draw the benefits of it. This happened in other civilizations also. Okay, now to distribute it
This is
to
very
the
interesting.
real,
Quite interesting.
I'll tell you, you know the groups, you can go through it. So to distribute it all over India to unknown groups in Kerala, absolutely unknown groups doing marvelous work in Kerala, to whom I asked, why don't you apply? He said, apply, no reply. I said, okay, we'll do something about it. We'll do something. So that was one huge thing done. And it was so easily undone the moment I left. And thereafter it went on. When this group came to power, they found that the schemes had shrunk and they put money into it and expanded the schemes but made selective coverage. They realized it was a very good instrument but made selective coverage of a particular cultural theme. So there was that. So on the archives which you had headed at a time, one could do it. But the point is to fight off people with a lot of negativism, because culture is one area. Remember, there are two areas in the bureaucracy where public communication and intellect is concerned, where public knowledge, human knowledge is concerned. That is, one is in education, the other is culture. Where the client base looks down upon you as a messy bureaucrat plunked there. The rest of all the 67 ministries, the client base looks up to you. Think of what I'm saying. Client base looks up to you. So that sort of thing. Now, culture is I have often said that culture is the lotus that stems out of muck. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Culture is below water. It's tackling the muck side of it and gets no credit for the lotus once it blooms. You see, that is the job that one has chosen. Chosen or been given. So we have to realize that the ministry is there dealing most of the time with muck and muck-like things, while every time there's a wonderful lotus that has bloomed, the lotus gets the credit for it. You understand? The same goes for education also, which I had the good fortune of serving for many years and getting hammered by every Tom, Dick, and Harry professor or vice chancellor all the time. But if you move on to commerce, which is my BAP ministry, or you move on to something else, my BAP ministry, the one that we were tuned to be thinking of, you'll find the Baniyas running after you. The same Baniya won't look at you, or the favor seeker won't look at you the moment you're not there in the chair. 15 years from the time when I was in culture, they keep in touch. They keep in touch. They won't get anything from me. They keep in touch. We have argued black and blue, but they keep in touch because that is the function of a working mind. And keep in touch in respect to the fact that I know that that person's views are diametrically opposite to mine. That is the beauty of culture. So I feel it was worth it was so that is my point, limited point.
Sir, you mentioned a couple of things, especially during your tenure as Secretary Culture, where you had intervened and where you thought you had made some positive contribution. One of them was the museum. Now, the museum movement in India, which was quite nascent around your time, has tried to blossom. So I would like to have your comments on two specific things. One is this concept of our national museum, Yuge Yuge. It's a huge project which is unfolding in front of us. And the second thing is more particular to West Bengal, where both of us have served. The oldest Indian museum, which is the Indian Museum, exists there. And you have also tried, and even I have also tried to set things right over there. And having tried to make some changes, which perhaps later on I thought were only cosmetic, couldn't do much. What do you have to say about these two particular projects? One to remake the National Museum, the Yuge Yuge, and the other one is the Indian Museum, which is our oldest.
I have serious doubts about the first Yuge Yuge. Number one, no one other than a select band knows even sides of bits of what's going on. A French group, a colonial background French group has been brought in and paid astronomical sums for the last 2 years to imagine what would be done, but not a single Indian has been called over for a discussion. A group of user-friendly people have been constituted into committees, not once, but twice, and none of them speak out for fear of retribution of what's going on.
Sir, I beg to differ.
Okay,
for the
if you
reason
do
because
differ,
when
please.
all this got decided, you know, I coincidentally happened to be there.
No, I know, but show me one page in the public domain. Show me one page in the public domain. That's all.
So,
all I'm saying, it's like the Central Vista project. The Central Vista project is one of the, you see, this is not transparency. The Central Vista project is spending thousands. It spent 680 crores to do up Rajpath with a few sandstone seats and a few lights here and there and closing a public thoroughfare for life. Now, just walk along it as an Indian, as a retired person, as a person who has no more interest, hopefully, in government benefits, and see and tell me where 684 crores went there.
On the subject of Yuge Yuge, let me just give you some facts because they are first-person facts. So, number one is that.
Incidentally, you're the first person to talk about it. Anyway, good. Sure.
So the first thing is that the Agence France Museum, which is in charge of 10, 12 of the main museums in their country, of which Louvre also happens to be one. They are unlike the Abu Dhabi Louvre, where Abu Dhabi Louvre took the responsibility or the mandate of doing anything and everything. Over here, they are not into content creation. They are not into providing a space. They are also not providing antiquities. They are only there to provide for technical inputs and the visitor experience, which I think is a good thing and a French collaboration. I mean, after all, going by the past history and the legacy of museology in that country, I think it's a good thing. So it's never that the content creation and the curation would be done by anyone else other than the Indians, because you have to actually be part of the Indian ethos if you need to curate a national museum such as ours. So that's beyond dispute. However, sir, what I wanted to ask you is that, is this a good development? Because when it comes up, it will have international resonance. You know what our National Museum had been or has been. It's very small, it's very recent. And now, when you see, you have the whole story of India, from all parts of India, antiquities would come and get collected and be woven into a very seamless story. Then, obviously, you see, the whole grandeur of the Indian civilization would come forth to the world to appreciate.
You see, that's quite presumptuous of the present regime to assume that there is no history, there is no analysis or marketing of history before they came, and that only Indians can do it. Number one, you remember A.L. Basham? A.L.
Yeah.
Basham and his wonder called India was staple diet, a very sympathetic, empathetic staple diet for generations of Indians, and he was not an Indian. Much of what India has produced and has excelled in was found out and marketed and publicized by outsiders, from Max Muller to William Jones to others. So we don't go and fall for that thing. In fact, I would submit that India had deliberately, Brahmanic India, I use the term, had deliberately wiped off the memory of Ashoka till in 1837. Until in 1837, James Prinsep labored for days together at One Park Street Asiatic Society and rediscovered and re-established Ashoka forever. And everything about the Buddhist civilization, we could then tie up with the stupas that were being discovered. The entire narrative was created at that point of time. So imperialists notwithstanding, and the poor guy died at 34 or 35 out of overwork. Notwithstanding, there were
I don't
people
think so.
who
Even
were
anyone
sorry.
dies of overwork, sir.
No,
Does anyone die of overwork?
yes,
People
yes,
may
yes.
die of
Nobody doesn't
overeating,
die.
but
No,
they
no,
don't
nobody
die of
dies of.
overwork.
No. Check it out. Check out that history. When I make a comment like that, check out his history. That how it all happened. What I'm talking of, Prinsep and his work on Banaras. Forget it.
Yes. Yes.
Now, so we can't put it that A and this, and you need an ethnicity or a nationality to think good about something. B, we can't understand what is being
Sir,
conjured.
my basic question is, I think it's a good move to portray
No,
Indian
everything.
culture in a grand manner. That's all. That's a very limited
No,
point
no.
I'm making.
The Coliseum approach to
There is
culture,
no
the
sinister
Coliseum.
approach to it.
No, it's completely sinister. It's secretive. It's secretive. It is sinister. It's a mystery
Sir,
wrapped in
how
an
can
enigma.
sculptures lie? How can
No.
manuscripts lie?
No,
How can
no, I can't
iconography
understand.
lie?
No, other than Raghvendra Singh, nobody on earth knows what's going on. I don't even know whether this.
I swear I
Nobody on
don't
earth
know.
knows what's
For
going
the last
on.
3 years, what has transpired, I'm completely unaware of. But how it
No. So what
started,
I'm saying is, why do it in secret? The Indian culture is not the property of the temporary
sir,
holders of power.
I'm sure,
It is
sir, I'm
not the
sure there are
property.
huge number of people involved, and it's
None
just
of
that
them.
they may not
None.
be speaking to
I
the
know the
press.
culture world. I know the culture world, and I've spoken to those whose names
थोड़ा
appear in
बहुत
the
तो हम भी
committee.
जानते हैं सर, बट मुझे नहीं
नहीं
लगता
नहीं,
ऐसा
हम
कि
तो
कोई कंस्पिरेसी है.
सबसे पूछा कोई एक 10 पन्ना डॉक्यूमेंट वेबसाइट पर पुट अप करे ना कि दिस इज व्हाट यू सी द सेम थिंग हैपेंड विद
I'm
दैट न्यू
sure they'll put
पार्लियामेंट
out when they
बिल्डिंग.
begin in the right earnest. I don't think so. The
नहीं
work has really
नहीं,
begun in
nothing,
the right
nothing.
earnest.
No. See, the imagining of India, it will be martyr imagining of India because whatever is whatever is hard fact is more or less on display and in knowledge. From the on dancing girl of Harappa to everyone, everything
No,
is
sir,
known and clear.
my viewpoint is, sir, my
Hmm.
viewpoint is that maybe with this effort and initiative, you will have, say, for example, whatever lies in terms of the Kushan sculpture in, say, Chandigarh, or whatever lies in terms of Mathura art in Mathura, or what lies in Amravati, Amravati art in the Chennai State Museum, they'll all, or at least some of their
Oh my
finest
God,
get brought
this is
together.
no, this is the first statement you have made that it will be aggregating, appropriating, looting,
No, it's not
whatever you say.
appropriating. You see, appropriating is the wrong word. But yes,
Ah.
it is all a part, integral part of Indian culture. So what's the harm in integrating?
So
Perhaps both of us are
what is
looking at it from there is no binary in this, and
there's
you're
a
making it out to be
complete
binary.
stealth here because there's something called history and there's something called imagination. I wish I had often actually told Mr. Gopal Gandhi
I mean,
to
I'm
know.
just thinking that if I was there, I would do it like that and sort of bring the finest specimens together. I mean, in Bharut, you know, I mean, I'm bringing you to Indian Museum now. Indian Museum, sir. Indian Museum has the best specimens of Bharut. Now, who knows Bharut? And when you see Bharut and its antiquity, and you compare it across the globe, and you see the refinement in our sculpture, I mean, it sort of fills me with a sense of immense pride. Believe you me, fills me up. And I would much rather that not only us Indians down south or in northeast or west get to see it and appreciate, but even guys sitting in Rome or guys sitting in Venice should also get to see it and then realize what we were then. And that is what may
So,
just
now do you mean to say that there are not enough specimens of Buddhist art in other museums? Number one. Number two, why do you have to loot it from Calcutta and put it on a city, put it on a
I'm not
hill
saying
that is
loot it.
marked?
You can do it through AI also. You can do it through
Whatever.
so much of,
AI is
you don't have to do this. But the point is, when you are weaving the story together, then you are weaving it in such a way that the grandeur of our culture actually shows, which was a fact.
the grandeur of our culture.
Finding
Once
fault lines in it. You
no,
start finding
there's
fault lines.
a grandeur of our culture that we talk of the structural excellence that we talk of during the Buddhist period, where I repeat for the third time, all buried and forgotten by a civilization that did not like Buddhism to exist. It ran away from
Sir, I
India.
differ with this
No,
because you
not
are
there's no
saying
question is
that
different.
Buddhism is something completely separate from Hinduism. And I
No.
think
Buddhism
Buddhism,
is
when it
completely
came up,
separate from Hinduism. It completely separate, heterodox, and
anyway,
the
sir,
1,000-year war between the Shramanas and the Brahmanas are well known. Now, if you
we
want to appropriate Buddhism after having liquidated it from the
appropriate
Indian
Buddhism.
subcontinent,
Buddhism is ours. Jainism is
very
ours.
good.
Sufism is
Appropriate means
ours. Where is the need
I'm
to
talking.
appropriate it?
See, the point is you already have mentally appropriated it. Now, can you tell me
No,
how many
mentally
Hindu temples?
appropriated. It is born out
No,
of the same womb, sir. It is born out of the
it
same
it
womb. Abrahamic
it
religions
is
are
it
not born out of
you
our
did
womb,
see you had
born
history
out
as
of
a
Indian
subject
womb.
one had a subject called history one.
But it's
Go back
nice,
to
sir.
it
It's
and
really great to sort of have
uh,
a
no
dialogue
Buddhism
which is like this, but there is obviously no animus. There is nothing
no,
involved in
there's
it. You would appreciate
contradiction.
that.
Please try to understand the contradiction, the conflict between the Shramanas and the Brahmanas that has been encapsulated in books like The Snake and the Mongoose. I can send it to you. Now, you please try to understand the reality of what actually happened instead of imagining a rosy world, the reality of what happened and how several of the best elements of Buddhism were appropriated and inculcated and improved into Hinduism. So let's get the facts clear.
Okay,
That
sir. Okay,
the
we'll leave this at leave it here, sir. For a later period. Can we now shift tack to something which is equally provocative, if you allow me, sir? And that
yeah,
is
please.
and that is that we as sectary culture, culture is such an omnibus term. And we had within our ministries various institutions which would also deal with aspects of narratives. And, I have realized that the narrative of 1857, which lies mainly in our folklore because the British would not allow and consider it as treason, any history which was written after 1857. And by the time they left India, that generation had gone. So it sort of exists in our folklore. When I started reading on 1857, I got a distinct feeling that 1857 as a movement was much more popular, connected with far many more Indians, and was basically a reaction to the onslaught which the British were making on our culture, and they almost lost India then. And that 90 years which they spent was spent by us in trying to prolong a freedom movement. Let me complete this before you react. A freedom movement, the freedom for which would have come much earlier, which basically means that when the British transferred power to us, and I use the word transfer of power because a lot of people like Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan and others continue to use this phrase till long after thereafter. Now, once you use the word transfer of power, and the freedom struggle party at that time starts saying that it was the British and their two-nation theory and this and that, so laying all the blame on the British designs, then my question is, what was the Congress doing at that time? If anything and everything was done by the British, then it sort of minimizes their role in partition. And minimizing the role in partition is the narrative of history which is carried on since 1947. So two things emerge. One is minimizing the role of 1857 and minimizing the role of Congress in partition, which took place. What do you have to say to these things? What have we done as Ministry of Culture?
Number one, on 1857, there's been a lot of work thereafter, but one of the striking facts that's never been publicized either by the Congress regime or by this regime, is that immediately thereafter, the largest shipment of Indian detainees were taken to Andamans, where there was no jail, incidentally, no jail. They were taken to 3 islands there, and those lists is available, out of which you'll find more than 65% Mussalman. The treacherous Mussalman had actually taken a greater role in 1857, a point that needs to be added. Number one. I will not get into 1857.
So again, you're looking at the fault lines. I'm asking about the narrative. You bring the aspect of Muslims in.
Then if there is a fault line, no, such a negative person. Now listen, let's proceed. I am making a fact to your audience to check up history, and we'll proceed. Number one. Number two, prolonging a movement cannot be attributed by those who had sabotaged the movement. You have to understand from the first decade of the second decade of the 20th century, the Hindu Mahasabha worked against it. I am putting it in writing. I can give you the letter of 26 July of Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, where he says, I most respectfully lay down my services for the cause of the British Empire because the Indians don't understand the excellence. I can send it to you. I've read it out in Parliament. We are saying
debate on Hindu Mahasabha versus Congress.
You mentioned Congress. The Congress was not a party. Number one. It was not a party. It was full of conflict.
My specific question is that they say, the Congress says that they could not do much about partition because the partition.
No, they have never said these things.
I have people like Manish Tiwari who said it recently on my podcast.
Manish Tiwari is not a historian. He's a scholar, but not a historian. We have the documents of 4th of June, 3rd of June, the Mountbatten meeting. We have who said
so what does this say?
And the partition of Bengal was advocated first and foremost by the one who collaborated with the Muslims, that is Shyama Prasad. Partition of Bengal. If we talk of partition of Bengal,
so are you saying that India actually concedes to two-nation theory, and the
India is
Congress
the
conceded to
two-nation theory.
two-nation theory because Muslims were one nation, and then both of them could stay?
See, the two-nation theory was a vicious, toxic idea that Jinnah put up and was heartily reciprocated by the Hindu right. There is not that tons
no,
of
sir.
material.
This is the very fact that we agreed to partition. Is conceding the fact.
We have material.
Is conceding to the fact that we agreed.
No,
100%
listen. Okay.
voted.
When the
For
Pakistan resolution
it's a different thing that not many could go to Pakistan, but anyone and everyone voted.
Listen, I'll put it like this. In 1937, the Sindh government was a coalition between the Muslim League and the Hindu Mahasabha. In 1938, when they took the precursor of the Pakistan resolution, the cabinet ministers of the Hindu Mahasabha did not break up the ministry. So the conniving, collusive role of the Hindu Mahasabha and the exclusive role of the RSS that betrayed the Indian freedom movement.
Very important.
No, I have facts. I am 73. I have facts, and I've written writings in tons. So,
okay, sir, so on the narrative bit, you're saying that the narrative is correct. 1947.
The narrative is not correct.
1947 was a bigger movement.
Narratives are created by closed minds. They from the extreme left to the extreme right.
That's the history we have actually read and grown up with.
That's history.
1857 तो कोई खास बहुत बड़ा नहीं था, वो तो एक म्यूटिनी टाइप की थी.
Tell me if you want to raise that issue, that from Kanpur, Lucknow, Meerut, Barakpur, and 5 other centers.
No, sir. No, it was there in Northeast. It was there in Jammu and Kashmir. It was across Vindhyas. Anywhere and everywhere.
I mean that would be very interesting. I would gain a lot from an expensive role there. I would gain a lot to know. I would gain a lot to know. I'm not closing my mind to it because
एक चीज और थी सर कि in this creative culture economy, why don't we find a mushrooming of startups? We have great talent, great innovative talent in our young people, but yet we don't find culture startups really mushrooming in the field of creative culture economy. What would you ascribe it to that? I mean, I've veered off completely.
No, I don't know really, because on museum history and the past, we have a mind block. Remember that. Museums are not an Indian concept. We did not have a single museum. I'll tell you the reason why. Our civilization has believed in purity and departure. Purity, pollution, and departure. So when a person dies, he is immediately disposed of. His clothes are disposed of, his properties are disposed of, his belongings are disposed of, it's going on over with. We do not preserve it and go back and visit it, number one. So in a culture like that, that reminds me of a story. I am fond of buying antique pieces from flea markets all over Europe. And every time I brought in a piece of art or culture from, say, France for a small price, my wife, who is from top English school and college and a topper all through, would shriek and say, "Pata nahi kiske jhootha hai, kiske what sort of dirty thing you have got? First put it in Ganga water, wash it first." No, that is a typical Indian. So we didn't preserve. Nobody preserved anything. We didn't. And then comes the Islamic period, which is more interesting. They had this concept of pollution, purity didn't exist with them. But even they did not have it. They had toshakhanas and karkhanas and all sorts of things. They didn't believe in preserving. Preservation of the past was also, was first conceived of in the 1820s and 30s. And it was then taken as the white man's gift to the world. They created this college and others created the Indian Museum out of the collections of the Asiatic Society. The Asiatic Society went on picking up, appropriating, looting, uprooting, whatever it is. And some of these pieces, I would say, God bless them. Otherwise, we would never have found them. They were kept in the backyard of the Asiatic Society, to which is occupied by the Indian Museum today.
Both the
Now, this
Asiatic
concept of
societies, both the Asiatic
Hmm,
societies, Mumbai
hmm,
and also in Kolkata, they have
hmm.
actually long taken a backseat in terms of being prominent cultural
Absolutely,
institutions
absolutely,
where a
absolutely. I
lot of
agree with
great
you.
research could
No,
have
no,
actually taken
absolutely,
place.
absolutely. They are like the sons of old princely families who go to the market and say, "Give the money, kitna," and then you say this much is one of pound of because they say do chatak there. So they
So
have
why
reached
don't
that.
we try
Hmm,
and bring some kind
hmm,
of,
hmm,
CSR अगर आप देखें सर, तो कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी फंडिंग कल्चर में इसलिए भी नहीं है कि उस तरह का प्लेटफॉर्म ही नहीं है, मतलब एजुकेशन में,
It is
हेल्थ
covered.
में,
Culture is
स्किलिंग में
covered. You can.
काफी होता है, बट हमारे यहाँ इन टर्म्स ऑफ टोटल सीएसआर स्पेंड it is less than 1.5% in the culture
I
sector.
know.
So
I know.
number one,
I know.
that
So.
should actually greatly come up, and
Hmm,
some
hmm.
kind of private sector mainstreaming of funding for research etc. is, कोई अगर करे भी रिसर्च तो क्या जाता है किसी का, आई मीन वी कैन फाइंड आउट कि भाई किस तरह का रिसर्च हो रहा है, कोई उसमें फॉरेन पर्पस तो नहीं इन्वॉल्व है और ये वो, और अगर हम देखें तो वी कैन एक्चुअली अलाउ दिस काइंड ऑफ
You
फंडिंग.
should. Absolutely should. In fact, I welcome these 10, 12 years that I clinically oppose and ideologically oppose as the other point of view. As
जी.
the other point of view. I do. I do. I take on the premises. I take on the premises to the extent of my knowledge. But where I don't understand, I keep it with me. Now, there is a new place for a counter narrative. I have no doubt about it. There is the place for a counter narrative. We cannot go on one narrative. So more research and more, even if I put it, research based on a preconceived notion is also okay. Okay, as long as the evidence substantiates. You don't create evidence to substantiate what you have
Who will
already thought.
dispute it? Who will dispute what you are
No,
saying?
no, no.
No.
So we have no, and it's a wonder. It's a pity that that culture is not found to be a marketable commodity. The startups are all directed towards marketable commodities and profit. Culture, for instance, because of the audience base and the detachment of the audience base from their, let us say, heritage, or the less enthusiasm of the audience base from their heritage. Much unlike somebody in Britain, where you find little kids moving around museums. We don't have it. We have to bring in this
The
culture
biggest
of
problem
culture.
is that in India itself, we consider Ministry of Culture to be a lightweight ministry. On one side, we tom are
Mhm.
more than 5,000 years, and on the other side, compare
Absolutely.
institutions
No
which
one
promote
has.
as really lightweight, कि वहाँ क्या है यार, क्या है? This kind of
Hmm.
a hiatus, this kind of a binary, in terms of approach, I don't quite understand.
More
The
than that, Raghvendra, more than
hmm.
that, most of the culture secretary have taken this as a punishment. I have people who were so ambitious that they planned their entire career there to go to the home ministry at the cost of truth, veracity, at the cost of authenticity. I've seen. So there are many. My predecessor frankly told me that it was his worst post. One of the predecessors. So that is how many have your enthusiasm? You can count out of in a period of 10 years, maybe you'll get a culture secretary for 2 years who understands the subject, who loves the subject, and would love to place it, and considers it a pride posting. I never went off from culture. I had 3.5 years. I could have gone. Never went off. It's a way of looking at life. So I find it to be taken with so low priority both by government and the people.
Sir,
Hmm.
of late,
Others.
you've
Mhm.
seen a mushrooming of some of the very famous events which
Hmm.
happen, like the Jaipur Literature Festival or the Serendipity or some of the other what you call private initiatives. Um, what is your idea about I mean, are they giving something back to the Indian society in terms of enriching them, or promoting India's culture, or they are more of a commercial venture? I mean, of course,
I think
if you want to
we
survive,
cannot.
you have to be monetizing things. But are they being able to maintain a proper threshold?
See, Raghvendra, before answering that, I'll tell you a small thing. I got the Tamil temples other than the two Chola, great Chola ones. Other than that, all the cobbles that were under us measured. The pillars and the other areas left what we call the area for the audience and for perambulation of the dancer. I have the fact with me. And at no point could we find, and we gave certain square feet per person who was sitting and for the dancing lady, Devdasi dancing in between. At no point could we find more than 100 to 110%. Okay. So the Natta Mandapam attached to the Kovil, the temple, could not accommodate more than 100 to 110. So classical dance, even then, 1,000 years ago and more, had been a sorcery. Remember that. Had it not been for Keskar and 10 years in information and his, what shall I say, very, very brutal idea of forcing classical music through the All India radio and deleting popular music altogether, for which Pinaka Gaitmala came up to challenge, and then we had Vivid Bharati. So, had we not had these interventions, the democratization of classical music would not have taken place. Cultural ministry alone could not do it. It was done by All India Radio. What I'm saying is different aspects of culture are being marketed in different ways. Different aspects of culture are being marketed in different ways. No holistic ideas. That's one. The consciousness of the entirety of my heritage is not being transferred systematically to the youngster. That is the second tragedy. And the third is the wealth of cultural heritage is not a product of commercialization or startups. A lot of Disneyfication is taking place. A lot of Disneyfication is taking place, but the real transfer in its absolute pristine purity is just not taken. I failed. I'm a failure as a culture secretary, I have no doubt of it.
No, you're being very modest on that. And so this, sir, perhaps brings us to the close of this very interesting conversation which I've had with you, sir. And it's and we
Beg to differ.
Yes, we beg to differ, but there is a way of differing. I mean, in the sense that we differ, but we differ with a lot of deference. And so that is how
I have a lot of respect for you. I have a lot of respect for you and your attempt to bring in a very, what shall I say, biased form of narrative, but good. We require counterweight. We require counterweight.
I love this backhanded compliment from you, sir. I love this backhanded compliment. I understand it fully, but Mr. Jawhar Sircar has been a senior colleague of mine, and I've respected him, and I would perhaps restrain myself from reacting to what Bob he's just sent my way. But we've had a great conversation, ladies and gentlemen. And if you subscribe and share this podcast, No Half Truths, Pura Sach, Inside Out, it will keep on encouraging us into bringing in different formats interesting conversations, some conversations which can perhaps lean towards being controversial also, but nevertheless interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for taking time out and being present on my podcast. Namaskar.